Hello, everyone. The guest today on the episode of Whitehall Talk series is Mr. Som Shankar Das. So, Mr. Das has worn many hats successfully. He was born in Kolkata in a business family. He did his master's in mathematics and physics from Presidency College, and he joined the Indian Administrative Services in 1975. He served as the district collector of Ratnagiri in Maharashtra and later as director of industries in Maharashtra. He was one of the earliest Indians to join the Stanford Business School in 1983. He joined the semiconductor industry and while living in the US helped a lot of Indian companies establish their roots there. He became a venture capitalist in 1997 and created the first US venture fund to invest in India. Mr. Das now runs an investment accelerator which has invested in several companies in the US. So without further ado, let's meet our guest on the Whitehall Talk series today, Mr. Som Shankar Das. So it's great to have you here on the Whitehall Talk series. The purpose of this series is to learn important life lessons that young people can emulate. So you worked on many things. You started new projects, new businesses. Your enthusiasm is as infectious as someone starting their first day on a new job. So what is the secret?
The secret, I think, is basically to never stop learning. It's continuous learning is something that keeps you going. For me, I've had a career that is now spanning almost 50 years, and I think I remain enthusiastic about what I do today, as I was when I joined the government in public sector in 1972-74. So I think the most important engine for me has been one of continuous learning.
So your career has followed is very diverse. It's gone from a government officer managing a district to a venture capitalist, and from a semiconductor to from semiconductors to software, and from CEO to a business accelerator. So what special ingredients do you bring to all these diverse areas? So how do you make yourself valuable in all these situations?
So, in some sense, I owe a lot to my career in the IAS. You see, my educational training has been in physics and maths. I'm not an engineer. So, liberal education actually allowed me to not think about things in silos. And the training in the IAS and spending 10 years in the IAS actually helped me do multiple things at the same time, to be able to multiplex, to be able to take multiple responsibilities at a very early age. I started that kind of model of working around when I was 26 years old, so that's a long time back. And that ability to do multiple things at the same time has actually continued in all the different things I've done in my life. So even though I have moved from public sector to semiconductors to venture capital to building my own company to now doing what I'm doing, which is working with a group of leading edge technology companies, the common factor has been the willingness to learn from everybody, from your superiors, your subordinates, your peers, and the ability to be able to do multiple things at the same time and not get overwhelmed.
So I think you have a great quality of adjusting to changes.
I
And
do.
yeah, and so
Yes, absolutely, because the world is.
such as the coronavirus, now everyone's in lockdown and you've adjusted that as well.
So to me, the coronavirus is both a problem and an opportunity. It's a problem for many people, and we know that what effect it will have on the global economy, on the economy of individual countries, on the economy of individual households and people. That is true. But I'm always trying to figure out what is the silver lining, and there are certain companies that I'm involved with that can actually bring a lot of value in a world where you have to keep social distancing, in a world where you have to work from home, in a world where things are not quite as it used to be, and we all have to get used to a new normal. So there are a couple of companies that are heavily engaged with, which are relate to this ability to do things remotely, whether it is working at the infrastructure level or whether it is working at the business process level. So these are some of the areas that I'm focused on. Serendipity, I didn't plan it that way, but at least a few of the companies in my portfolio are doing rather well, even in this environment. And I'm obviously trying to see how that can benefit a greater, a greater set of people, our customers and partners and things like that.
I've heard you often use the word reporting or So can you share what you mean when you say this?
Reporting?
Yeah, or when you say the importance of reporting oneself in life.
Yes, because see, the thing is, the world is very dynamic. Everything is changing. Politics is changing. Economics is changing. Climate is changing. So there's nothing constant about the world. There was a time in my parents' generation where somebody joined a company or an organization and just lived and worked there for close to 35, 40 years. You had whole towns that were called company towns. You had, for example, Jamshedpur is a good example of a company town where the entire town is built around the Tata steel mills. That is no longer true. On the flip side, now today, you have what is called the gig economy. And the gig economy is where people are generally sort of loyal to themselves and less to an organization. That's not so bad in a sense, because what you're really trying to do is to see how you can become more self-reliant. And in that sense, um, being a gig worker allows you to live your own dreams rather than working for somebody else's dreams. Now, in order to be able to be a successful gig worker, you must be able to adapt and change all the time. Because, as I said, nothing remains constant and you must also evolve. So I think the important thing here is that to accept that change is going to be inevitable, but you must have a certain set of qualities that allows you to go through all of these different changes without really losing control or losing sight of what you want to do. And there are a few factors that have to be with you and that are actually common to all these different endeavors that you might be doing.
You've had many successes in your investment career, such as Mindtree, WebEx, Sierra Atlantic. So, can you share a bit about any of the companies you work with now and what you find exciting about it?
So I give the example of WebEx. The WebEx is a company that I invested in 1999. That's more than 20 years ago. But it is a company whose product I use even today after 21 years. I used it yesterday with Cisco. Cisco is now the owner of WebEx, and they've taken the company. When they acquired it, it was about less than $500 million in revenue. Right now, the Cisco WebEx business is about a $5 billion revenue. So it's a 10x increase in the last 15 years. Now, what was the sort of the characteristics of this investment? Actually, in all of these investments, luck plays a big role. You have to be able to give due weightage to Dame Luck, because you might plan for everything, but you can still end up with a lousy investment. And sometimes you don't plan for much and you can still end up with a very good investment. Now, in this case, what happened was I was introduced to the company by somebody I had met in a conference, and I was intrigued. I was intrigued because the founders were two people, one from India, one from China, and what they showed me was something that at that time was very novel. The fact is that you could actually share screens, share documents remotely. Now, we are all used to using audio phones, and that is something we were very accustomed to for many years. But this was the first time I was seeing the sharing of documents and people being able to collaborate. So, what got me interested was, if you think about it, uh, all of us collaborate in one fashion or form all the time. Every waking moment, we are collaborating with somebody on something. It could be two people collaborating or five people collaborating. Right now, I'm collaborating with you to create this video. So collaboration is endemic or is an inherent part of our living, just as search is. I remember meeting the founders of Google at one time, and when they used the word search engine, I actually wanted to invest in the company because if you think about it again, we're always searching for something every waking moment of our life. So anyway, coming back to WebEx, this notion of collaboration got me. I found it very interesting. Then I started making a comparison in my mind about how do I compare the WebEx collaboration service with what we get as a phone service from an AT&T or a Verizon. And I realized that in the case of the telecom carriers, they had central office switches that allowed people to be able to move around traffic, talk to each other, and so on. What was happening in the case of WebEx was the central office switches were being replaced by servers, powerful computers that did the same thing. So I saw in my mind a one-to-one correspondence. And sometimes what I try to do when I'm looking at new cutting-edge technologies, I try to simplify them into simple metaphors that I can use to explain to myself as well as to others. Because oftentimes a complex technology with all new buzzwords becomes very difficult to explain to people. But if I can simplify it in terms of language and images that people are familiar with, it becomes a lot easier to convince people of new ideas. And that's how I got involved with WebEx. One thing led to another. I became a board member on WebEx, which was a publicly listed company on NASDAQ. Like I said, for me, continuous learning is very important. And what I learned very well at WebEx was how to become a board member in a public listed company. And a board member in a public listed company is very, very different than a board member in a private company.
Yeah. I have many friends who live their lives as being Indian and American at the same time, and the value systems tend to get confused. So, if someone had the luxury to choose, what traits would you suggest one should pick from both cultures?
You know, I would never put these cultures in silos. Yes, there are different cultures, but you can always create a sort of a composite mosaic of values that makes sense. So, what I have strived to do is to create a value system that is relevant for me. That means I know by now I know what I want to do in life. I would say when you're 24 years old, and then when I was 22 years old, I was quite confused. But being confused early on in your career is nothing bad. I mean, it's just the process of discovering yourself. So at 22, I was discovering myself. And of course, the IIS and spending 10 years in the IIS was a great foundation for my careers, future careers. But in terms of the value systems, there are lots of important things from the environment where I come from, which is India, and the environment where I live, which is in the US. So I have tried to pick the best in my mind, whatever works for me, and tried to create for myself a composite value system that sort of is my North Star.
As you mentioned, when you were 22, you didn't have exactly an idea of what you wanted to do. So many people going into colleges don't know what they want to do or what they enjoy doing. So what advice would you give them to help them find what they love to do?
So when you're a student, you should focus on what you really like. So for example, somebody might think that my son is going to be a good engineer because there's a general trend in India to either have push your kids for engineering or medicine or what have you. But it could be that the child is more interested in writing.
Yeah.
Now then you wonder, writing, why is writing so important? In my case, I did not go into engineering, although I had been admitted to all the IITs. I went into liberal education, which was physics and maths. And that actually helped me because physics and maths help you become very, very rational in your thinking. You become quite structured in the way you look at things, quite structured in the way you define a problem. And if you can define your problem correctly in a structured manner, you will also be able to find solutions. But coming back to, when I was 22 years old, and many other people I'm sure have the same experience, I was very confused because when I finished my master's degree in physics and maths in 1971, 72, I felt I could do everything and I felt I could also do nothing because I had no unique skills. There was no particular skill that I had developed. I was not an electrical engineer. I was not a mechanical engineer. I wasn't a doctor. It was not that I could go straight into some profession and start working. So for me, it just worked out that the IIS was a great learning experience because I realized that if you have a general set of skills, horizontal, that can be equally valuable as a vertical set of skills. And I prefer actually starting out now. In hindsight, of course, it's 2020, and I would say that right now I feel like having had the ability and the opportunity to develop my skills horizontally has stood me in good stead because of that horizontal skill set, I was able to build my foundation of ability to learn continuously when I was in the IIS, and that led me to be able to play a significant role in semiconductors which is highly technical industry, to venture capital, which is very financially oriented, to building a company, which is all about, how do you manage 4,000 human beings and build a global company, to what I do now, which is how do I work with, entrepreneurs and be able to support them, be a meta entrepreneur yourself.
Yeah.
And what is a meta entrepreneur? It's somebody who can actually help other entrepreneurs succeed. And you do have to do it in a very careful way, because you cannot trust yourself forward. You have to be in the middle office to be able to help your CEOs. And so you can see all of these different things that I've done have this common sort of characteristic, which is again continuous learning, delving yourself deeply into a subject, and that actually has been supported by the fact that I have a horizontal way of thinking, followed by vertical deep dive in whatever I decide to do.
Okay. You bring a lot of perspectives into a conversation, from history, geography, physics. You have a fantastic memory. Do you attribute this to how you were as a student? And how do you continue to learn?
I was a good student. I would say that. I was a National Science Talent Search Scholar, which was a scholarship awarded by the government of India. I did get into Stanford University Business School, which is not so easy to get in. In the 1980s, I was the only Indian in my class. So generally speaking, I was a good student. But I think what really shaped me was the 10 years working in the IS in the villages in India. Because, when you're a good student, you tend to be an academic. You're learning a lot from books and other things. But in the IAS, it was all about practicality. It was all about dealing with human beings, whether you're dealing with the public, whether you're dealing with your co-workers, whether you're dealing with different government departments that don't report to you directly, but on a dotted line, or whether you're dealing with politicians, you are dealing with different constituencies, and you're trying to make sure that you can optimize your relationships with these constituencies for the 3 years that you are in a district, to be able to do over and beyond what the government expects you to do. So all of us, when we were in the districts, had one trait. The good officers always knew that I will do whatever the government has to do, but that's table stakes. I will do that anyways. But over and beyond that, we always sought to find out a mission for ourselves where we would make a personal impact. Something that could not be done because of the government's ability to give you the powers that they had. It was something that we thought we could do, and we would do, because we could leverage the power of the seat that we occupied and do something in addition to the normal work routine. I was able to do that in Ratnagiri because I was given $5 million. $5 million in 1980 is the equivalent of 50 crores. I was given that much of money to do a massive rural development program in Ratnagiri, and that I immediately seized upon. I saw the opportunity that this was something I could actually do and make a mark, difference to the people in the district, over and beyond what I was supposed to do as a government representative in the district.
My last question to you is, with you've had a lot of experience. So have you, what are the life principles that have emerged?
Perseverance. So I will show you something. I wanted to show you this. Do you see this here?
Yeah.
It's a plaque that I have in my office. I will read it to you. Persistence is important because nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. And this is a quote by Calvin Coolidge, who was one of the former presidents of the United States. So for me, this is very important because I am at the cutting edge of whatever I do. So I always have to go through a discovery process because there's no precedence that I can follow. So the chances are that I will try, and I will probably fail 9 times. But if I persevere, then the 10th time I will succeed. So there's one famous story of a person called Robert the Bruce. Robert the Bruce was a Scottish chieftain, and he was despondent because he had lost many of his battles. But while he was sitting in a fortress and wondering what to do next, he saw a spider trying to climb the walls, and the spider failed 7 times, but on the 8th effort, he succeeded. And that inspired Robert the Bruce, that if you go and persevere, you will succeed. So for me, probably the most important value is perseverance, just because of the nature of what I do. And the second is this continuous learning, because I have to learn to be able to find the solutions to the problems that I face. And the problem really is one of the unknown. But like any other explorer, you have to be prepared for unpleasant surprises. But unpleasant surprises should not deter you, should not make you, disenchanted or disappointed. I think, in some sense, as the old English saying goes, failures are the pillars of success. So if you fail a few times, it doesn't matter. But it's always good to try and discover yourself and see what you're good at. And once you know what you're good at and you try that, you will succeed. So to me today, the uncertainty of what I was when I was 22 years old has been replaced by a level of confidence that I know even if somebody throws a problem at me, I know how to dissect the problem and hopefully suggest a solution.
That's a great value. Thank you for speaking with me today. This was very educational and I learned a lot. I had a great time talking to you and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Varun. It was very nice to talk to you, and all the best to you as well.